Hello and welcome to Gringos Liberados episode 8. I'm Axman87, and this week on the pod with me, we have Hawk, Trajan, and 4Y4. We got some play-by-play casters back here for us on the podcast, and they're going to tell us all about their vacation, and then we'll move on forward here. 4Y4, how was it, man? How was it getting married?
Getting married was great. It didn't rain. Thank every deity that you may or may not believe in. It was a wonderful day. Like, it literally went off without a hitch. The best part was like just having everybody there. Again, like, there were people that I had seen, the week prior. There were people that I hadn't seen in like 2 or 3 years. Some family that I hadn't seen since before the pandemic. It is true what they say about, like, you don't get to eat at your own wedding, because I just felt this immense pressure. Like, I'm a people pleaser. I just felt this immense pressure. Like, I need to talk to everybody. But my better half, like, she told me at the beginning of the day, she was like, hey, don't feel the pressure to do that shit. Like, let's enjoy our time, because like it's gonna be over before we know it. Let's like make sure that we dance and just have fun and like get drunk and like, have fun at your own wedding. And so we did. And she, made sure I did that. It was a fucking blast. Yeah. And there's the expletive tag on the. Sorry.
Yeah, we got it already. Yeah,
it was
are we
over 30
demonetized
seconds
now?
after the start. I think you're okay. I think it was late enough.
I cursed on the last episode, and it was, I was told it was fine. So
it was fine. Yeah. It was fine. Trajan, where did you end up going? It was like a music festival or something, right?
Yeah, I went to the Hebridean Celtic Music Festival. Went to the Isle of Lewis and Harris. It's one island, but there's 2 isles on it. There's just an arbitrary line drawn across the middle of it. Don't ask me to explain why. The islanders are very odd, is all I can really say. But it was really good. It was a great. I'm not a festival guy, but the music was banger. The festival was really clean. They had this system where like you buy a cup, and they fill up your drink in your cup, and then you just take it away. You can wear it on like a lanyard, and you just like give them the cup to fill up, and like then you give them the cup back, and they give you your money back for it. So there's no trash. Wow. This is like no cups and cans everywhere. It's actually genius. So it was really clean. And the weather was meant to be just like tipping with rain the whole time, but it wasn't. It was like sunny at times. There was a little bit of spit maybe, but it was just kind of Scottish and grey and mild. So it was actually really, really good. And then I got engaged at the end of it. So, kind of.
I was going to say, you buried the lead there.
I know. So I'm chasing after 404's high there. But he certainly had the greater thunder of the weekend. I am merely a preliminary married stage. But yes, it was very cool.
Still big congratulations to you, my friend.
Yeah. The reason I ask, and some of this is like over a week old, is because the 2 guys that had to cover for you while you were out are actually both on the podcast as well. It's myself and Hawk. And to some mixed results, I would say Hawk had a little bit better of a time play-by-playing than I did, but
what are you talking about? I don't want to hear that on this.
Hey, actually color cast play-by-play every week. This is no one was surprised that Hawk can play-by-play, I'll be honest, with the energy coming out of this guy.
Hawk was so on one of the casts it was me coloring and Hawk was doing play-by-play, and that was actually a really good cast. So
we had a good time. It was fun.
Yeah, we did have a very good time. Myself and Rude, not so much, but that's okay.
Hey, I also got I had poor Solari on her CBLOL debut with autofilled Hawk as her play-by-play.
Autofilled Hawk.
She's probably like, God, like these guys are terrible.
Yeah, right. Oh,
what have I walked into? And then she has to watch the games as well.
Right, yeah, exactly. I mean, it was the epitome of CBLOL chaos on day one, because we had like 8,000 gold comebacks. I mean, I know we're talking about 2 weeks ago now, but I mean, it was funny.
It was very funny. I think, hey, nobody like hit us up on Twitter or like made a hate reel or anything. So I think we survived. The point is, but that's all old news. That's all in the past. I want to talk about week 7. I want to talk about what we thought of the games, where we think the league is going. A lot of really exciting stuff happened this week, and I think we'll start with Hawk first, because I think we'll start with Hawk.
I mean, there was a lot of really exciting stuff that happened this past week. I think the biggest thing is sort of the shuffle we had at the top of the table, y'all. paiN has overtaken Red in a tie for first place now. And not only that, Red, they're in very real danger of losing even top 2 if Fluxo can come off the top rope. Now, I don't really expect Red to lose any more games this split, but it is still entirely possible. And I mean, things are still very competitive at the top. Sure, the playoff race at this point, like Los Grandes, is by all rights, other than mathematically eliminated, and they took Furia with them, it seems. Except Furia does still have a bit of a chance. I mean, like, definitely big shakeups. I'm still holding out a little bit of hope for Furia that they can make things exciting, but I don't know. They've got a long road ahead of them.
Yeah, and I'll pick up where you dropped off there. I think they have Loud in their schedule coming up. I think all I really want from Furia from here on out. I fully dropped the playoffs thing, by the way. That game, holy cow! throwing that lead, man, into Los Grandes, like physically changed the chemistry of my brain. Like, I think it made things so much worse. Like, I'm gonna have to talk to the doctor about it, but yeah, I think they have Loud in their schedule, and maybe if they upset Loud or something and send Loud further down the table, that's about all Furia has left to do to, like, maybe even kind of impress me. I don't think they're making playoffs. I don't think they're going anywhere really. My reactions since I picked up after Hawk were that Liberty Academy are actually pretty solid. I know they lost both games this week. I know they weren't like particularly close games. I think they were very like clear points where the entire team broke down and it was like, oh, okay, these guys aren't on the same level. And that was okay. But that it looked very much like a CBLOL team playing like a top LPL team. You know how in international competition,
I was going to say,
like,
it literally reminded me of international competition where like the first 20 minutes, it's like, are we doing this? Are we doing this? And then
all of a sudden, one of them just like nose dives into the ground, right? And that's not terrible. I mean, that's a lot better than I thought they would be. But that's a top academy team. And I guess I don't know if we're doing hot takes yet, but my hot take is I think they take a game off somebody. I think they're gonna get somebody. But that was cool. That was my reaction there. And then top of the table stuff, so interesting. Hawk, I think we got fully vindicated on our Bronzi MVP.
Yes, yes, we did. Baby.
Yes, we did. We did.
We were high on Bronzi last week, and he outplayed Titan in that game. I'm just gonna say, Bronzi, like, he didn't win the MVP for the game, which I think was valid, but Bronzi was mechanically on another plane of existence that game. In the way he played, I was impressed, and I was super high on Bronzi, so I'm feeling vindicated about that for sure, man. I mean, MVP is honestly a really interesting discussion. I know the discussion last week was Bronzi against Titan, and then sort of like a little side dish of B-Voy. I think Weiser is actually really starting to make a strong case as well. It's hard when our AD carries have been such a focal point, not just like in the way that they've been playing, but also the meta has favored them a lot, at least in terms of being able to very obviously carry. But after watching this past week's games with paiN Gaming going 2-0 against some very strong teams, with Weiser just again doing Weiser things, like the conversation of MVP, I think Weiser is actually very much a part of that at this point. And I mean, I don't know. I'm still like on the Bronzi train, especially with how he played this past weekend, but it really feels like it could be anyone's game.
It's going to go down to the last week, I think, of games to decide who the MVP is. And I fully agree. I agree completely with everything that has been stated so far. Bronzi is absolutely crushing it. And I think that Weiser, though, because he's a top laner, and because it's so hard to be an MVP in this current meta as a top laner, it feels, and has been for so long, in the most AD-favored meta, like, just the fact that he is doing what he's doing as a top laner, when he's picking Gnar, like, almost every game, you know, and he's not just fading into the background and doing one Gnar ult and calling that done and dusted. Like, he is so impactful for that team. And it's a team where paiN, you match him up against Fluxo mid and bot, you're like, it's kind of Fluxo favored, and you match him up against red mid and bot, and it's like, it's kind of red favored. But then top lane is always like, that's paiN's lane. Top lane is paiN's lane now because of Weiser, and no one can question him on that.
I want to jump off on that really quickly too, because I think, Trajan, you bring up a good point. The fact that we're even mentioning Weiser's name in the same sentence of MVP as a top laner, I think speaks to how unbelievably dominant he has been throughout this split, and he's ramped into the split. I mean, just absolute weak side god, 1v1 king, team fight aficionado. Like, I'm forever blown away by how much impact Weiser manages to have when every single one of my solo queue top laners claims their role is useless. So, I mean, it's just
right. 100%. Any reactions for him? What do you think?
No, I mean, it was the top of the table, like you said. I mean, that's the intriguing part, and just how quickly like the flavor of the month can shift in CBLOL. Like even for me, I've been like very much pushing the like, no guys, Loud are like they're back. They're going to be just as impossible to stop. But seeing paiN take on a new identity, Hawk, that nugget that you pointed out of like they had won because they've won 8 of their last 9, like all those wins have been under 25 minutes.
Yeah.
That I lost sleep over that. I woke up in a cold sweat watching like inhibitors
it's not
go down.
Slow paiN anymore, man.
No, like, exactly. And that's what's so exciting, right? Is like you've got like Fluxo being like they out team fought Red as like the best team fighting team. How's having like the peeling Nico ults, watching Titan dive into the back line right into a Pop Blossom and like 2/3 of his health disappeared. That's an image that will stay with me forever. And like it's not only like the top of the table shakeup, but it's watching these teams take on like either better versions of themselves or just completely new identities in the.
I never verified it.
So tight.
I don't know if he had vision of the Nico, but I maybe that's just me coping. But I can,
maybe
like,
he did, maybe he didn't.
I could see the clip in my head you're talking about. And it's so funny.
The only other thing that I have to temper everyone's hype with to maintain a brand as the most cynical play-by-play to ever do it. Last split, we saw Fluxo go on a big ass streak and just completely fall into the bin when it mattered. We saw paiN finish the regular split in first and fall into the bin when it mattered. And we saw Loud sleep their way through most of the split and then win anyway when it mattered. So we're still very much within that.
We're in the holding pattern.
It's just that this split we've all forgotten and we're all like, yeah, it's gonna be different this time, guys.
Right to point that out. You're very correct because that did happen. However, my counterpoint will be Fluxo looks like they actually have it figured out. Honestly, last split, I don't think I ever looked at that team and thought they had it figured out. I just thought they knew how to win. And I think there's a different... That sounds really redundant, but I feel like there's a bit of a difference where, like, Fluxo knew how to win in the moment, but they hadn't figured out how to actually just play the best League of Legends possible. Right now, Fluxo looks like a team that knows exactly how they want to play League of Legends. They're executing on it, and their players are performing. So, like, yeah, you're right to point that out for sure, but I have a different feeling about this team, this split, as opposed to last split. I just hope I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Trajan, my question to you would be, if Flux are going to drop the ball on the 1 yard line, who is your champion of reliability that's going to keep it together and actually beat them?
It's paiN. I think it's paiN. I think
paiN?
it's because I think it's paiN right now because they face paiN this coming week, and it's just enough time where paiN is like maximum peak to just knock Fluxo off their game, and whether that spirals into disaster again, who knows? But I think that even if Fluxo lose to paiN, I don't go the wheels have come off. I then wait and see what the next couple of games do. But I think paiN are the only team that have a shot because their early and mid game is so good. It's so good. If it goes late, Fluxo probably wins. But if paiN can actually they can kind of Fluxo them. They can just roll them over in the early stages by just being really good at League of Legends. And Fluxo, as Hawk says, are certainly way better than they used to be, and probably better than anyone else besides paiN. But I think that's the only question that I have, is that just the level of dominance that paiN showed over Red is absolutely disgraceful. But there is one other interesting thing, just to introduce to this Fluxo conversation before we move on, is that Fluxo don't throw games. They actually don't. And this is like a CBLOL thing, is the CBLOL throw. This is very common. Everyone in chat knows it. All the broadcast talent know it. We love to throw games, right? But Fluxo just don't. The biggest throw that Fluxo has had all split has been slightly under 3,000 gold, and it was at 31 minutes when that gold lead is literally nothing. That's irrelevant at that point in the game. And it was against paiN Gaming, and they lost that game. So Fluxo has found a way to win, to get a lead, and then they don't actually throw the game away, which basically every other team in the league, besides probably paiN, does. So that's something that sets them apart for me right now.
And not only that, I also want to point out that Fluxo also has some come from behind victories, especially earlier in the split, which I think speaks to the level of their team fighting. And that I think that's a really interesting point. I forgot, I didn't realize that they weren't throwing like that, but that's a great point to bring up, Trajan. Like, this team performs so well in the mid to late game as a 5-man unit that, like, they're very, very scary moving forward. And Axeman, I heard you're like, really, when you said that, when Trajan said that paiN was going to be that consistent team that can overtake at the top. I'm curious as to who you would have put up there, because honestly, to me, after watching this past weekend, I think Fluxo and paiN are by far the 2 best teams in the league.
Yeah, no, 100%. The crux of my question was like, hey, if Fluxo is going to fall apart at the end because they're not reliable, which top team in the league is more reliable? Because you look historically, paiN Gaming is not reliable to win a championship. Like, if anything, it's more guaranteed that they will also drop the ball on the 1-yard line. And if you look at this split, the other top team at Red, I've never seen a team look so shaky at the 1-yard line like ever. So
Red seemed
my
to have
question
thought
was
whatever.
like
Red breaks like 6 tackles to still make it to the end zone somehow. Like that's how they've been playing.
Yeah, and they're like still like juggling the ball at the end and like tripping over themselves and stuff. And they kind of fall in the end zone.
That metaphor kind of works though, because they just kind of beast mode their way in. That's an American football reference for those of you that don't get it. Like you just out muscle teams. That feels like how Red wins.
Red is the beast quake.
They are the beast quake. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. I don't think another team can actually make it to finals now. I've really lost faith in, like, I guess I said 7 teams last time I was on the pod, and which was last week, I think. And I'm down to, I think, just like firmly 3.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm at a point where, as far as making let me pull up the standings actually while we talk about this. As far as making like the top of like the finals, I will say I think Red right now definitively worse than paiN and Fluxo. I do still think this team has the ability to contend. You know, we sort of had this conversation last week. Like, is Red actually getting better this split so far? Not really, but that's still gotten them to this point. And if they do somehow start getting better at the back half, you know, if they can do the Loud thing where they suddenly realize that like there's holes in their ship and they start patching them, Red is good enough where I think they could contend. My hot take, maybe, is that I don't think Loud will ever contend with this top 3 in the playoffs. I think Loud is not going to have their magic this split. Yes, Robo's coming alive on the back half, but Loud is undefeated against every team that's not in the top 3, and they're 1-5 against the top 3. So I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to get in 4th, like just straight up.
But they are the one team that has beaten paiN. paiN have won 8 of 9, and the one loss was to Loud.
That is true. That's true.
And I'm not even saying that's. I don't know what I'd kind of say after that, but I think
more like once.
more of to like go off what I said previously about just like how wild how quickly our perceptions of these teams are changing. Yeah. Because and I don't think it's even unwarranted. Is like because Red, not only did they they do usual Red things, they looked awful. They looked so outclassed. Like that Red versus paiN game. I remember that the rest of my life. I'm gonna tell my grandkids about it, and they're gonna be like, "Okay, old man." Like,
I will say, to defend Red a little bit for that game, I think they massively draft gapped themselves. They put themselves in a extremely losing position from the onset, and obviously for paiN to play this well, Red was doing things wrong. Like, it was not a good game for them, but paiN played maybe the best game I have ever seen in the CBLOL ever. Like, it was such a disgusting, just stomp on the side of paiN, where, obviously, yes, Red let that happen, not a good look, but I want to give paiN the credit that they're due for that game and not have it be like, yeah, Red just sucked, because paiN thoroughly dismantled them, and Red was unable to find their footing into that game. So that's how I feel about that a little bit. Like, yes, not a good look, but I'm willing to give paiN more credit than Red rather for being bad, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think that 2 out of 3 of paiN's losses have been them draft gapping themselves, and they lost one to Loud, legitimately. I think that if paiN draft properly, they haven't really lost to anyone that's Loud. I really don't count the Red loss where they drafted Dinkado Jace, and I really don't count where they drafted Wiser Malphite into Kindred against Furia. I think those are just unbelievable fumbles in the draft, and they haven't messed up their draft since week 3. So I think that they do beat themselves. They have the potential to beat themselves in the draft phase and potentially in the mental game versus Loud, but that's really the only people that can beat paiN. It really depends on what Fluxo can do in the early and mid game, I think. Otherwise, paiN might just.
I would be curious to see Fluxo and paiN play again. Oh wait, we are. We're gonna see it.
We
are going to see it.
Because we're about to. Yeah.
It's one of the first games, I think, right?
It's the last game. It's the last game of the weekend. I can pull up the
Last game of
schedule
the
for next
weekend.
week.
Yeah, slips of pain. Yeah, match of the week though. It's gonna be so much fun.
Yeah,
100% match of the week.
OP.
Somebody said Robo popped off this week. He popped off in the Liberty Academy. I don't know.
He played well. He played well in.
He's good in the other one, right?
In the other one as well. Well, yeah, he had a lot of. Robo had a Robo game in the other one where he had a lot of pressure.
Oh yeah,
but he was kind of griefing it at the same time. Yeah, but he also played well against Red in their loss on the Renekton as well. Like
yeah.
Robo is starting to come alive, I think, in the split.
Yeah, I can feel that too. I mean, the Jax game was pretty good.
I do agree with Hawk though that I don't think Loud are gonna make it, and I've had this feeling since about midway through the split. I was like, I don't know, I just don't think they're gonna get there. I think that the league is just different, you know. It's like it's like Djokovic just crushing tennis for a long time because there was no one else. There was no one else in their prime to contend with. And I think Loud had a couple of splits where the only people that could contend in the end of the day was paiN, who refused to play properly against them, and there was no one else for a couple of splits. And now there's 3 other people, including paiN, who look way better, and Red Super Team and Fluxo, who have gotten it together. So I think that it's just a different landscape, and that this Loud will not be able to get away with the kind of things that at International get exposed from day one, and at CBLOL do not really get exposed, which is mostly Robo and Croc.
My hot take, I don't know if this is a hot take. I say that
we do hot takes.
I feel like the level of play in the CBLOL the split is significantly higher than it was in split 1.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think at the top it is, and I would say that more,
at least at the top. Yeah, at the top.
And I would even say that more recently, because I think up until like week 3 or 4, everyone was just there was no.
I'm with you. Second half of the split, second round robin, I think the level of play has been higher. The reason I say that is I feel like Loud at this point, like, yes, they sucked early. Loud at this point, I think, is playing to the level that we've come to expect from Loud, and it's not working as well because the other teams are better. I don't know if you all agree with that, but that's sort of how I'm feeling watching Loud. Like, maybe it's slightly worse, but like they look like the Loud that I know, and I'm just not impressed anymore.
I think that'll always be a hot take, because even though like every analyst on this show could potentially agree with you there, Hawk, but as soon as we go to an international situation where like, hey, we got a lot better this time, everybody and their mother's gonna be like, oh, whatever, CBLOL, and we're gonna have to prove it to everyone, I guess.
Us getting the level of play could be higher, and it could also not be higher relative to the rest of the world, right? Like,
not high enough.
Those are not mutually exclusive, so I want to interject with that. But yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, who knows if paiN or Fluxo would go to Worlds and make group stage or whatever, but like, you know, I just feel like at least watching the teams play against each other, I think that the teams are better than they were in split 1. Whether or not that means international success, not the point I'm trying to make, but I mean, hopefully, but who knows?
And I would commit to say that I think CBLOL as a minor region has the greatest depth of good players compared to any of the other ones, which have one, maybe 2 good teams maximum. PSG is the only good team in PCS. There's one good team in the LGL, and there's one good team in there's 2 good teams in the VCS. And that's like, those are the only other regions that have dared to contend at this level, and CBLOL has at least 4. And depending, you know, on maybe next split, maybe by the end of this split, teams like VKS and maybe Furia next split, these are other teams that can start contending again. So I think we have way more depth of talent that is like able to perform at a high level than any other minor region. For sure.
I love that point, because I also think CBLOL's problem is like internationally, at least, is actually really not like the level of talent in terms of individual players that we have here. I think CBLOL has some absolute studs domestically as far as talent goes. It's really just like, you know, coming together and playing good League of Legends, right? But like, I like that you bring that up as well, Trajan, because the depth and the competitiveness of this league, I think, is honestly a huge reason why CBLOL has continued to see increasing international success. Incremental increases maybe, but still increasing.
Yeah, 100%. We went way off the rails on week 7 reactions and thoughts, and that is totally fine. I'm going to go to okay, so we're going to go through favorite moments from the week 7, but we're going to keep it pretty brief here. So I'm just going to start mine. My favorite moment from week 7 was Liberty Academy getting first blood onto Loud, because I like the rush of dopamine I got when I was like, oh my gosh, Yeso like we're gonna do it, dude. We're gonna beat them. It was incredible. It was so incredible. And then they got like second blood too. They made another play, like top or something like that, and I was like, it's happening. It was so much fun, man. I got to talk to some of the Liberty Academy guys on Twitter. And a bunch of them followed me. It was very cool. Very cool experience overall. But yeah, that was mine. 4x4 will go with you next. What was your favorite moment?
I mean, we had some fun games. This feels like cheating, and honestly, like I apologize for anyone else whose thunder I'm gonna take is. I mean that paiN Gaming win, because I think I'm kind of just rephrasing what you all have said in maybe like a different way. Is that, you know, we talk about how like the Liberty Academy game, or just like international competition, when weaker teams go up against the 4th seeded LPL team, and it's like for 20 minutes, like, oh shit, can we do it? But it like paiN's win over Red didn't feel like that. It didn't feel like, okay, you just got away with a couple of cheese ganks and you like won a slightly lopsided skirmish at Herald where like your Gwen hit level 6 before whoever did. Like, especially like what Pro Delta, like the way that, the way that Pro Delta and the rest of the map combined to just like they were cross mapping all over the place, right? This gets like what Hawk was talking about, is like it looked intelligent, right? It wasn't just like this fun, fast, like cheesy early game. It was clean as shit. Like they were forcing the hand of Red, and they didn't allow Red to just brute force their way through. They didn't allow them to just Beastquake outhands you, Titan Nexus defense their way out of it. That was the coolest thing for me. And on top of the fact that if you've been watching for, you know, more than a couple splits, you would know that like this paiN we're seeing now is wildly different, and that is extremely sick. It's going to be very, very fun to see how they because it feels like they're doing what Loud did, right? And that's the kind of great like generalization we like to make in Pro League of Legends is, okay, how do you beat a team that's very just kind of like paiN, like high floor? Is you punch them in the teeth early, right? You do what Loud did. It's the LPL LCK counter, like, and it feels like they have finally unlocked that. They have become flexible, which for a roster that has been together effectively the same core for 3 or 4 splits, which is an eternity in professional League of Legends, that's extremely impressive to see that flexibility.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Trajan, what you got?
My favorite moment of week 7 was Netuno sniping with a Void Seeker into the mid lane versus, it must have been VKS, I believe, dives in 1v3 double kills and almost 1v3 triple kills. And I was just like, man, he's still got it, bro. Like he's on his grind. He's on a dead team. Like he's trapped down there. But like he's given like an interview, I think, as well, and he was fine. He was nice enough. He wasn't like super down or anything. But he's still got it. He's still so cracked. He's just so good. And like we just don't get to see it anymore. And that makes me sad. We got the one clip from week 1 where he like Gale Force Aphelios, Inferno Melts, and just like 1v5s that team fight. And we got this clip today, and I was like, I just like watching this guy play. I think that was my week 1 moment, I think, was just watching Netuno play the game. And that's kind of my week 7 moment, was getting to watch Netuno play the game a bit again in that
I like that.
list.
It feels good. Reminds me of Ninja Kiwi. Hawk, what do you got?
Yeah, like, very similar situation right now, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a low-hanging fruit. I liked when Bronzi solo killed Titan because it made me feel very vindicated in my analysis. Yeah. That was super
Yes!
Gale Force forward up the mid lane, baby. That's my AD carry.
And the way the like camera snaps to it too, like they just
we came out of a replay,
moment.
I think, or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was like a National Geographic, like getting a video of 2 bears fighting or something like that.
Yeah,
it's awesome,
like the catch and zoom in. It's like, whoa.
So that was a fun moment. That was a fun game in general. That was probably my favorite one of the weekend. So
yeah, that was totally awesome. All good moments for sure. We're looking forward to more moments coming through with week 8 this weekend. Don't miss that on the CBLOL English stream. LOL esports / a bunch of stuff. I'm going to be honest. I don't know all of it, but you will find it. If you're an English speaking audience person, awesome. Should have scripted that bit. Which LOL personality should fight brTT? This comes from Dia. This question comes from Dia. He asked it on the broadcast. And we had this interview with brTT. He was like, talking about his fights, talking about his like music stuff that he does. And a bunch of us didn't know that he fights. Like I guess he's a boxer, I think.
Everyone's a
Something
boxer
like
these
that.
days.
Yeah.
Everyone's a boxer
He's a
these
content
days.
boxer.
And Dia's question was, which LoL personality should fight brTT? Trajan, we haven't come to you first yet. Trajan, which LoL personality should fight brTT?
So, I suggested this and put this on the agenda, posting it from Dia. I probably should have thought of an answer. But I think one of the good answers, one of the easiest answers is Doublelift, because of the Twitch chat meme, which is just brTT greater than Doublelift, and then you could actually just be like, in the rift, on the rift, outside of the rift. It's just a clean sweep across all planes of reality. And I think that we can't really do that with Doublelift right now, because I think he's actually currently in hospital with internal bleeding. So we're not going to do that.
God, yeah.
Okay.
True.
Yeah, he's actually, best wishes to Doublelift and Lena, etc., because that's wild. And apparently he played a couple
you got to
of
get
games.
better so you can fight brTT.
So yeah, you got to recuperate so that you can fight brTT in the greatest comeback story of all time.
Yeah.
Which would be great television, but that might be the easiest pick.
I think that is a pretty good pick, yeah.
I don't even know. I do best wishes to Doublelift for sure. I feel like that is like a pretty good answer as well. Just like, I don't know, the Brazilian goat against definitely like one of the NA goats as well. Like there's League of Legends storylines, there's Mimi storylines there. I'm trying to think of like, dude, I don't know. I didn't think of an answer to this question
either. Who
either.
could take him in CBLOL? I feel like Ranger could maybe take him in CBLOL.
Who could take him?
Ranger's big.
I
don't know.
He's kind of stacked.
I think Robo's kind of big too. I don't know.
I was
Robo
thinking, for some reason I was thinking Robo, because I feel like Robo would do it for the content.
I think he would too.
Like that. That's
I
what.
have nothing against Robo, but he kind of comes across as a bit of a geek to me. I don't know why. I think he just has like a really friendly, happy smile, and
he's got soft energy. Yeah.
I think he has very soft energy off the rift, and I don't mean any disrespect to the man.
No,
I kind of think he'd get rinsed.
I think he lacks the violence. I don't know if he has the violence.
The killer instinct off the
and
rift.
This is without knowing the man personally at all. Maybe he's like, hey, he could be like truly violent.
Look, I've seen Robo, pop off and BM some teams on stage. I think he's got that spirit somewhere inside of him. Like,
I think you would have to like insult him on a deeply personal level and like target a very specific insecurity, and then he would snap.
I think we can make that happen. I think we can make that happen.
Bring the Jacks out into the real world. I'm trying to see if any of these
I don't know. I feel like if you told Robo that 100,000 people would watch him fight brTT, he would just do it. Like that's the vibe I get. Like, like I don't know. Like he'd be like, "That sounds fun." Like,
yeah.
That'll be my answer. I'm gonna go with Robo.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to honestly, like, it's very difficult thinking of a LoL personality that would fight. Which is why I was so surprised that brTT fights, because I know we know like the influencer boxing thing is super big in NA, and I guess that it might be big there in Brazil as well. But I'd never seen that crossover with esports before. I didn't know of any like big esports boxing people. So I'm kind of just picking somebody who's a LoL personality who I want to see get beat up.
Yeah, that's the other thing you can do. Is just pick your least favorite personality and just get them beat up by brTT for a
bit.
Fair enough.
Having said that horrible sentence, I think I have to say it's me now, but
yes, I shall fight him.
I will fight brTT. No, I don't think I have a very good answer either. My only really good one would be maybe like Bronzi, and it'd be like an old versus new type thing. I feel like Bronzi would also do it for the content.
Bronzi
I have that.
For content. I mean, he literally went to Fluxo, it feels like, almost for the content. It's like when Caps just left, or who was it? Who left? Oh, Caps left Fnatic. He went to G2 despite like going to World Finals, and then just left for G2, and he was like, "Yeah, it'll be funny."
And then went back to World Finals. He just kind of shows up there. He's like Michael Cera. He's just kind of like, I'm not sure why I'm here, but I know that I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, someone please tell me what to do.
Answer. I think Ranger could maybe take him, and I actually think FMB could maybe take him. I think FMB has a killer mindset for sure. You see him
on, like, a good answer.
You can tell he gets mad too.
Yeah, it is all business. And I think he could take it to brTT.
He would definitely take it the most seriously, I think.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I think you could tell him that two people were watching, and he'd be like, I'll kill him. Is that allowed?
Do you want me to kill him?
Like I'll snap his neck. Is that allowed? Just get that straightened out beforehand. Yeah.
Oh,
I think if we're going pure content, it's got to be paiN.
Yes,
Yeah, actually,
yes, that would be perfect.
You can have it at CBLOL, you know.
At CBLOL, yeah, and that's the grand final. It's like, oh yeah, you watched all these the team one trick versus team the Koreans, and then by the way, the two biggest names in Brazilian League of Legends are going to beat the snot out of each other for your entertainment.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
100%. All good answers. All good answers. Hawk, did you end up saying Robo? Or
I think I did.
Yeah.
I'll just stick with that.
Robo. Yeah, I'm good with sticking with Robo. Very cool. Our next bit here, now that we picked somebody to fight brTT, is which role is most stacked in CBLOL? And now I'm going to start this one myself. Most stacked in CBLOL. I think it has to be supports. I think supports are the most stacked in CBLOL. Yeah, I'm gonna throw out my shot here.
Imagine that being the answer last split. Imagine that would never be the answer last split. That's crazy.
Yeah. My response is supports are eating more bans now than ever. I think they're not just eating meta bans, which I think is an important distinction. They're also eating targeted champ pool bans as well, which makes them incredibly valuable. But that builds into it being more stacked, because if it wasn't stacked, you wouldn't have to ban out all these supports. I think there's also been like we have a lot more support MVPs coming through, and that might be more of like a broadcast thing where they're trying to recognize more people, but I think it does actually allude to there being a higher level of play in that role. What do you think?
I mean, I will say we are definitely in a meta where supports can actually play the game now, and not just
that's fun.
Be a shield bot for their carry. So I'm with you on that end. Supports have actually eaten a lot of bans to split too. By the way, I can't see a total right here, but looking at the numbers, support is looking like the second most banned out role behind AD to me. And I'm not 100 on that because, again, I can't see a total. I'm kind of just guesstimating based on the numbers I see here. But that's what it looks like. Support would not have been my answer off the rip, but that is actually a really interesting one, Axe. Yeah. Because I do feel like at least it's second, like, again, turning over a new leaf in second round robins, I think now that we're back in this like support agency meta, I've been seeing a lot more good support play across the league.
Yeah, this is a good point. I've been trying to make this point for weeks, if you'll indulge me as well. So my favorite stat in CBLOL right now is on bvoy. I've talked about bvoy stats a couple times, but my favorite bvoy stat is that bvoy, unlike any other AD carry in the game, does not have any solo kills, has 0 solo kills. Can anyone tell me why bvoy doesn't have any solo kills? It's because Pro Delta is joined to him at the hip. He is tight on bvoy. Yeah. They are like two peas in a pod always, so that even though bvoy is in MVP contention, he has 0 solo kills. And that, I think, like further builds into how good the supports are this split as well. But yeah, definitely eager for more. I assume there's some AD carry stands here. Hawk, what do you think?
I'm actually thinking top lane of all things. I do not think we have a single bad top laner in the CBLOL. Let's look at even our lowest teams in the standings. They have Lonely, Kiari, Hidan, all players that have actually played pretty well in their own right. I think obviously there is a tier list of top lane, but I don't think any of them are bad. Where I look at every other role, there's at least one player that I'm like, not that high on. Top lane's the only one where I don't feel that way. So that's where I'm at. I think I'm looking at top lane. I actually am hard pressed to say AD carry this split just because of, I think, while I think there's a couple AD carries that are worse, but I also think there's a few AD carries that are so obviously better than the rest that I struggle to jump on that hype train. But maybe AD carry is the strongest at the top, and that's why it could be argued that that's the most stacked role.
I think that's the narrative that has been there, right? Is that Brazilian AD carries are so sick because of Titan, because of Bronzi, because of Ninja Kiwi. We've had this very strong Brazilian AD carry talent is crazy. And of course, like some of the other roles have more like imports in them. Like top lane has 3 Korean imports in it, right? But in terms of just stacked role in the league, not doing like native Brazilian or anything, I think it's telling that we did not go straight to AD carry, despite the fact that that is probably what the general populace would have had come to the mind first. I really like the support shout out. I think that's very interesting, but looking at it, I think it is like 7 or 8 out of 10. I'm like, great, no notes, like really strong. I think that for me, I'm looking at mid lane because all of like so many of our mid laners, I think it's more even at the top. There's like more parity among the top 5, top 6 mids where I'm like, you could actually just put this guy into any of the top teams and we're not losing that much out. Obviously, I'm like a House stand to the bones, and I think that he does have a little bit of extra sauce there, but like Tuts, Nosferus, like Tinones, Dinkero, Envy, Grevthar, these people are all insane. And then that's not even to speak on like Lava, who is, it's kind of hard to say.
He has his moments. He has his moments. Like when he's on, you see it. You see like, oh, this is the dude that they wanted to be here.
Yeah. I think the one that it's definitely not is jungle.
Yes,
that's the one thing we can say is it's not.
Definitely not jungle.
So let's go down. Let's go down the rank. Because this will be fun. Let's go down the standings until we find a bad jungler. Okay, right at the top of standings, paiN Karaoke. Is that a bad jungler?
No.
Good.
Second place, Aegis. Is that a bad jungler?
No.
Third place, Jasamis.
Not as a
late. You can't for Desamas if you're not going to for Karaoke. Desamas is better than Karaoke this split. I will die on that.
He's playing better than him. He's playing better than him right now, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
This guy.
I just wanted to rag on Desamas.
You could the next guy if you want. You can the next
Croc
guy
if you want. I'm gonna
Croc has
Croc
had some bad.
Sure.
Croc has had some bad games. I think Grell is pretty volatile too.
Yeah. We're getting very sus when we get down by 5th.
Grell and Vivocade's wins, MVP of the split. Grell and Vivocade's losses, worst player in the split.
Worst player in the split.
Yeah.
100%. I'm glad we agree jungle is the worst role in the league.
That's the question we had. 4-4, how do you feel like? Because I feel like we've said everything that isn't jungle now. So
yeah, I mean,
does anyone speak to you?
Which one of us is right?
I do appreciate your mid lane points. I was kind of toying with that. I was looking at my Lolpedia on my other monitor here, right? And I kind of came to a similar conclusion to you. I'm like, I'd be okay if any of these guys were on my team. But I think with that and even like the support conversation, I get into my own head about like good player, bad team, and like how hard it is to separate that. Especially when the meta doesn't, favor certain roles. How badly do they stick out, right? Like how the support meta has shifted and you see kind of certain supports being put back up. And so to answer your question, I'll just say AD carry. I'll take the lower hanging fruit. And I think, I think both sides of the argument for the things that we've discussed of, okay, the top is really, really good and it is an AD carry centric meta. So maybe you're going to see just naturally, you're going to favor AD carries more, going to view them more favorably. I will say, I think it is interesting, like guys like Waz and Redbird, that if we were sitting here a year ago and they weren't on these terrible teams, right? We would have looked at those as like very like serviceable, great. Like these guys are going to keep your head above water, right? And so I would be interested. I think the one thing that has not given me confidence and kind of shot the hole in the they're just elo held is the fact that now supports are being given more agency, and I still haven't seen it out of them. So that's giving me some pause. But yeah, I mean, I'll say AD carry. I think for nothing else because it is so much fun to watch mechanically these players pop off and have these kind of hero ball moments. I think, Brazilian players can be very emotional as we see in the player cams, and AD carry is a very emotional position. If you are not confident while playing that position, you will die.
Yeah. Yeah, that is certainly the case. I think mid is a pretty good a good one. If there's like a last last death knell for my support argument here. It's that you can go all the way down to the academy and still find good supports, which I think is really interesting. Like Cavallo, Liberty Academy, and then on Scamber, I think is on Red Academy too. It's pretty good down there. And you already mentioned like Watson Redbird, like they're like 9th and 10th in the league, and I think they're still good supports. So, but very cool, interesting discussion to be sure. I'm going to give you over to Trajan, and Trajan will take us into our next segment.
Oh, yeah. So the question I have to pose to everybody here, I've listed it down as the Netuno problem. I've touched on them already a couple times today. And it kind of feeds off the, AD carry being so stacked issue that we have, is that everyone agrees Netuno is elo held. Everyone agrees on this. We know this to be true. The guy is still insanely cracked. His team is very much not so. They're a little better now, but it's very much too late. So Netuno has had to spend another split not even getting a chance to redeem himself at playoffs, and that's very frustrating. But if it is everyone saying, get Netuno out of this team, get him a team, find him a team, what team? Which team? What team needs a Netuno right now that is actually contending for playoffs? What team is there room for him in? Because are you going to replace Titan on Red of all teams? No. Like, are Loud super happy with Root? For sure. Are paiN really happy with B-Boy and plays into their style? Most certainly. You're not going to dump Bronzi now, unless he leaves you for the next most richest team to come along. So Flux is probably happy with him. He's like MVP level right now. Where does Netuno go? What's the route out of this situation for him? And this is the MVP AD carry, and we can't find like a playoffs team for him. What's going on here? I just, that feels like such a tricky situation for him, and it almost feels like a waste, weirdly. But like, no one else is like paycheck stealing above him. You know what I mean? So what do we? I don't know. Where does he go? What does he do?
All right.
What's the plan for Netuno here?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. So I just want to start by like drawing like a comparison between the way I know my home region NA treats new players in its league, the LCS, versus the way we have done it the last few splits. If you're a new player in the LCS and you drop a couple games, you're just gone instantly. And like the chances you get back into the league are kind of shaky. It's super tragic. I know there's been a lot of criticism about that, how that system works in NA. But to kind of build up how we do it here in CBLOL, it's really actually very positive. If you drop into the league here and have a really bad split on AD carry, you're given like a lot of chances. In fact, the chances you just get moved to a different roster within the CBLOL are pretty high. And certainly if you get moved back down to Academy, the chances you're able to move back up are also very high. So we've seen players drop down to Academy, rise back up, go all the way into a top team. I'm thinking like House, thinking Chiari's not on a top team, but I think Chiari is a good example of like that variability between going into the Academy and going back into CBLOL. And if we look at like the new AD carry talent that's coming up recently in IU and Bronzi, you're able to succeed wildly if you have what it takes. I think that's really positive. Netuno's been this weird case where he came in and everyone was like, if you guys remember, oh, this is the second coming of brTT. This is the guy. It's going to be him. And that was the narrative for like week 1 of the split he started. And then by week 2, everyone was like, maybe not. Maybe some other guy. Because do we have any more guys? Do we have more guys that are the second coming of brTT? Because this one wasn't it. And he has been just kind of like this like middle of the pack, constantly good performances since then. And yeah, I don't know what it's gonna take for him to get onto a top team. I think just like veterancy at this point. I think he's kind of lost his luster as like a new talent.
Okay.
I'll jump in and maybe take the potentially easy answer. Well, one, there will be some ugly divorces at the end of the year, no matter what, because only one team is going to be able to say their split was a like rousing success, and that's the team that wins the title. So there will be 1 or 2 unexpected moves. B-Boy left Brazil once before. What's to say he doesn't leave again at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And if there's a paiN fails again, like
exactly,
maybe they just blow the whole thing up. Just rage.
Yeah, that like if I had to bet, I think that's probably that's where I would go.
Oh, he could actually be the second brTT on paiN. He could just join paiN.
Yeah, and if there's any org that has like the money and the clout and the ravenous fan base to demand, like, okay, B-Voy left, guess who we want? Give me Netuno.
Yeah. I'm feeling I mean like 4i4 said perfectly, not everyone's going to be on the same team next split. And who's also to say that Los Grandes doesn't put together a competitive team next split, right? Like this split, they kind of tried something and it was a catastrophic failure. And I think they should blow up their roster and either keep Netuno or sell him to somebody else. But literally every team is going to want Netuno next offseason. Any single team in the market for an AD carry, because Netuno is better than every single AD carry in this league other than like maybe Bronzi. So I still think like I don't think there is a Netuno problem. Yeah, it sucks that he's ELO held right now, but I'd be really surprised if he's not able to find his way onto a team next year, unless it's like Los Grandes tries something else with him. And if Los Grandes keeps him, then like Los Grandes keeps him. But like Vivo Cade Stars, like they would kill to have Netuno instead of Trigo, for example. Even like Loud and paiN both having import ADCs, like Netuno has value over as a native AD carry. Like INTZ, Ninja Kiwi's great, but Netuno's still better. And I that's where I'm at on this conversation is, you know, for as good as the AD carry pool is, and the fact that every other team's probably happy with their ADCs, there's going to be shuffles and everyone's going to want this player. Everyone should want this player.
Yeah. I
have an answer for, like, we're picking rosters, right? Hawk pick everybody, but I'm picking a roster here that Netuno can go on. So if you look at Loud, they have a very good AD carry. I think Root's very good. However, Loud, if they don't succeed this split, will have a roster that's been essentially together for like over a year now, right? And I think that they'll definitely blow it up if they're not successful. I think this team has two generational talents who have been with the league for an incredibly long amount of time. And while both of those players, Tinones and Robo, both still have what it takes to compete in the league, I think it's a very real conversation about retirement. You know, I mean, they've been here a really long time. They peaked super hard last year. And now they're dropping off. Hey, maybe it's time to retire. If they do that, the roster definitely blows up. I don't know if they keep Root, and that might be an opportunity for Netuno to move in there. Root also hasn't had like a great split. I don't think he's been bad, but he hasn't had a great split either. So
you don't keep Root. If and it's the same way with paiN, I guess. Yeah, I like those suggestions just because like if you blow up either of those rosters, you don't keep the Korean import who isn't naturalized, who isn't an you would restart, I think, and rethink it.
I think so too.
Before imports, you know.
I do want to just quickly defend Root as well. I think he's been the second most ELO held AD carry in the league, and that his team is 9-5. I think that says a lot. I think Root has actually been tremendous to split, and basically every single one of Loud's losses, I think he's been their best player, and he's been their best player in a few of their wins as well. So I do want to. I think the notion that Root has not had a great split, I disagree with. I think Root is still like the only reason he's not in the conversation of best AD carries in the league is because Bronzi and Titan and Bronzi, Titan and B-Voy are playing at such a high level. So
yeah. I think the Loud bot lane has certainly been the best part of that roster right now. So like maybe if they blew it up, maybe they keep the bot lane, and that's probably like a perfectly reasonable thing to do, right? It depends what Root wants to do, I suppose. But
maybe I think that's no problem.
the most enjoyable answer, I think, for me is just put him into paiN. As good as B-Voy is, statistically strong and like eye test strong as well. If they lose again, especially if it's to Loud, we just say no and we start again and we rethink it, and then they can put Netuno as the crowning jewel of whatever the new paiN is going to be. And there's plenty of good players who will be floating around, as you guys say. So I guess for me, I think the answer I like the most is paiN Gaming. But
I think an answer we haven't explored yet is that would they just swap out a couple pieces on Los Grandes? I know Los Grandes has been very bad, but we also like play best of ones, which makes mid-split roster changes and like starting off on the wrong foot extremely damaging to your split. Like this team is I would say they finally had some semblance of a good roster once they got scary on them, and that was like what, week 6 or something. Like
and
week 5.
they got when they got Hidan into top lane, 'cause they have an L in jungle. Scary one to
NL, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah,
NL
because NL was
Hidan.
fine, but Hidan I think was the point where it was like, okay, now we've got like a roster that can contend, and it will definitely beat the weak teams now, and it will threaten the better ones.
Yeah.
So like maybe you find another up and coming exciting jungle talent, and then that roster as it isn't. It's like VKS-ish, like 5th, maybe 4th contending, depending on Loud.
I honestly would be pretty surprised this split as well if Lava stayed in Brazil. Just after not making playoffs. I think this team needs a new mid jungle, and they're pretty good. I still am not sold on the Ranger support, but it's been fine. I think Hidan has been good. Honestly, I disagree with Hidan. NL rather having been fine. I think NL has been less than fine. I think NL has been a very exploitable jungler, way too passive, and very binary in his decision making. It seems so. I think this team needs
Trick set the bar very low.
Trick set the bar very low, and NL has still been unimpressive, unfortunately for me. I would love to see him succeed, but if I would love to see him on a roster that does not have Netuno on it, and maybe like be a low playoff contender. The thing is, Netuno should be a championship contender, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Los Grandes wants as well.
Has he ever played in a final match?
I don't think he's ever played in a final.
That is criminal.
Because he was on Flamengo, and like those Flamengo teams would always flame out, and then he was on Super Furia, and they never made it to a final. Yeah.
Yeah, third, 4th, 5th. Yikes.
Womp womp.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay.
So what do you think, Trajan? Did we solve the Netuno problem?
I think you've solved the Netuno problem for sure.
It's going to be so much fun. Every offseason is a banger in the CBLOL, and this one's going to be so much fun.
We have a silly season, as the F1 community puts it. There is always a silly season in CBLOL, so I'm excited to see where he ends up. And I just hope he gets something to do at the end of the day.
100%. Wish the best for Netuno. Matches to watch week 8. We'll start pulling towards the end of the podcast here. I think what's our runtime at right now? 40 minutes, 50 minutes?
We are at 56 minutes.
Yeah, I think we're like right
about a little overtime. We're a little overtime. That's okay. Matches to watch week 8. Hawk, will you pull up the schedule, please? We can talk about those matches. I think pretty easy. I'll just say at the top, take the low-hanging fruit. Fluxo paiN match of the week, right?
Banger
of the week. Number 1, and the team I have at number 2 there. And I think that's going to be the biggest one. Anybody else have any matches they want to talk about?
I would love to start because this is probably a very hot take. Again, I think there's only 2 matches that really matter. One match that really matters this week. Sorry. I think the only match that really matters is Fluxo paiN. I think a lot of these other ones are either foregone conclusions or they don't really hold a lot of weight. At least as far as this week's matches. Red, they're playing 2 of our bottom tier teams. Loud, I expect them to be able to handle some of our lower tier bubble playoff teams. I am a little interested in VKS. Just because they're on the playoff bubble. I think their game against Loud could be interesting. The thing is, I expect Loud to win. Again, Loud undefeated against everyone below them in the standings so far this split. I don't expect that to change. What I want to talk about really quick, it doesn't really apply this week, but the playoff race. Furia, 2 games back. Again, Los Grandes, they're not mathematically eliminated, but they're 3 games back with a losing head-to-head against the Vivo Cade Stars. I don't think they make it. And they also have a losing head-to-head against INTZ. I think they're done for, unfortunately. But even though they're not mathematically out, Furia, on the other hand, actually has a legitimate shot. Furia, remaining schedule. You can see 2 of the games on your screen. They've got one against Kaboom. They've got one against Loud. And then they've got, in week 9, Vivo Cade Stars and Liberty. Which means
it's a joke. That could be 4 wins.
No, it could be 3. I don't think they're going to beat Loud, but I mean maybe it could be.
But to your point, you kind of have to win 3 of those games.
Well, and you do. And the interesting thing as well is, so they have that head-to-head matchup against Vivo Cade Stars, which would put them at 1-1 in their head-to-head heading into playoffs next week in week 9. Which would put them still only within 1 game. So you're thinking, well, Vivo Cade, they still have a bit of a cushion. Well, let's look at Vivo Cade's schedule for a minute. Vivo Kate Stars have Loud, they have Liberty, which should be a win, they have Furia, and then on the final day of the split, last game of the entire split, they have Red. INTZ, who's also tied in the standings, also has a 1-1 head-to-head against Furia. Yeah. INTZ has paiN. They have Los Grandes, which, you know, I mean, should be a win. Then they have Loud, and then they have Fluxo. So there are two teams currently sitting at 8 and 6, the two teams that are 2 games ahead of Furia, that very realistically could go 1 and 3, as long as Furia goes 3 and 1 with their win against Vivo Kate Stars. So the playoff race is still extremely interesting. So I do have my eyes on the games that these teams are playing, even though they should be like somewhat foregone conclusions, a lot of them. Because I think Furia actually has a very legitimate shot to make playoffs. You've just got to beat Vivo Kate Stars.
Yeah. I think I lost a lot of faith in Furia. I thought they were maybe a finals contender last week. I'm very happy to say that like maybe they have a shot at playoffs. I think that's
at least a tiebreaker. At least that. Yeah.
A good like landing spot there. We're talking about strength of schedule. I think Red's strength of schedule is very funny. They got like Liberty, Kaboom, and then Los Grandes, and the hardest team they face is VKS. And I think that that's such an interesting way to end the split, because meanwhile their biggest competition is like in the trenches. Like paiN are taking on Fluxo, and then they're taking on other top teams, and we're gonna have a lot of good tape on paiN and Fluxo going this last few weeks, and like basically nothing on Red, which is gonna make playoffs opening. Who knows? Like maybe Red's gonna show up like they did the entire split long, and then just kind of drop the ball for a little bit in week 7 for a bit, or maybe they're just gonna be bad. We won't know, but we will know how good paiN and Fluxo are. So interesting week. I like what you talked about with the bubble games. I think there's a lot of good games.
The bubble's very interesting, despite Furia still being down 2 games, which is the point that I really wanted to hammer home.
Yeah, like Loss have to go 3 and 1, beating INTZ, and then like if INTZ get completely rolled by, admittedly, some pretty strong teams. They have Fluxo, Loud, and paiN as their other game. So INTZ could easily lose all 3 of those, and then if they lose to Loss, and Loss manages to like beat Red, if Red completely dumps to themselves again, if Loud fail to get their stuff together, if Loss actually improve, I think that the Loss shot is not as unlikely as it seems on the surface. Certainly unlikely, but it's very possible that INTZ does not make any more progress, and that Loss continues to improve, sneaks across like Red and Loud, who are very inconsistent right now, and then actually have a tiebreaker against INTZ for 6th, which would be pretty spicy. So it could get pretty good down there. I'm going to be watching Loud closely to see if they continue to be good, because I want to see if they're good, and I'm going to be watching Fluxo very closely to see if they continue to be good. Those are just like the general teams that I'm keeping a close eye on as well.
I like that as well, Trajan. Just real quick, because as far as clinching playoffs at the top, Fluxo, if they beat Los Grandes on second game of day 1, they clinch a playoff spot. Los Grandes, again, would still not be out if INTZ loses that day, but it would literally need to be a 3-0-0-3 back at the split for those 2 teams. Probably not going to happen, but it could. So that's the situation for Los. Fluxo would clinch, though. Also, Loud clinches if they go 2-0 this week. So against Vivo Kate Stars and Furia, 2 teams that they, again, should be able to 2-0 against, but we are having our eyes on them. Like, if they have a nice, easy 2-0, they clinch their playoff spot. I think any doubts about that team, at least being, again, like the 4th place team, should probably be diminished. Nobody else can clinch. INTZ, Vivo Kate Stars, we already talked about. It's spicy. So there's a possibility we have 4 teams in, but if Loud drop a game, the door is still open just that little bit.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff going to the end. And I think we got everybody's match of the week. Did we get 4x4s? I think we did, right?
Not formally, but it would have been
Get in here.
Something along the lines of that. I'll keep it brief and take something that no one else has. Honorable mention, Loud VKS, because we are kind of, losing hope in Loud, and the Loud homer in me thinks, it's just because everybody else is getting a lot of well-deserved attention. We've just kind of maybe forgotten about Loud, but as Hawk likes to point out, the record against top teams cannot be ignored, even with a shitty start to the season. VKS kind of fighting for their lives, right? paiN INTZ could be interesting. paiN on momentum, power rank, best team in Brazil right now. But that is a rivalry game. INTZ is not going to take that game lying down. The Brazilian public will certainly be keeping an eye on it. The INTZ fans are going to come out in full force. So little honorable mention there.
Yeah, definitely a fan service game. With that, if no one has anything else, folks, that has been episode 8 of Gringos Liberados. Thank you so much for watching. We've been Axeman87, Hawk, Trajan 4x4. Watch the stream over the weekend. We go live at like noon Eastern and 9 a.m. Pacific, whatever that time is.
1 o'clock Brazil time.
Your local time, 1 o'clock Brazil time. I will wish you all a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.